Alongside the cue and its tip, snooker chalk is another crucial piece of equipment that is vital to playing a successful shot. It can seem fairly insignificant due to how frequently it's used and how infrequently it's mentioned, except in the cases of poor contact. However, I wanted to look a little further into the properties of snooker chalk and the effect that it has on an overall match. In a nutshell, the effect that chalk has on a shot is simple. You have the tip of a snooker cue and the cue ball itself, but they're not the components that are actually in contact with each other. The application of chalk creates a barrier between them that increases the friction upon contact of the two surfaces. It's mainly used when playing a shot off the center of mass, or pretty much with side spin. Most top level professionals rarely play center ball or plain ball shots, hence the need to continuously apply chalk. When striking the cue ball off center, you're aiming for a smaller portion of the total area, so it's necessary to increase the grip of the cue tip to ensure that when the ball is struck, the energy that is created from the increased friction is transferred to the spin on the ball. By creating a coarser surface with increased grip, you're reducing the chances of miscues. Top tip, by the way, there is a correct way to apply chalk. If you see a chalk that has an enormous hole in it, then it's been used incorrectly. Drilling a circle into the chalk as a method for application actually creates a smoother surface on the tip, which is the opposite of what you're going for. Just stick with the even brushes of chalk as shown by the pros and you'll be fine. In the early 19th century, traditional chalk was used in billiards for the perceived benefits that we know of it today: improved grip and greater shot selection. The chalk used was similar to that of blackboard chalk, although the problem with this, similar to when blackboard dusters are clapped together, is that it results in a substantial dispersal of chalk dust. This is when developments were made to the chalk that we're familiar with, which don't actually consist of chalk, but numerous compounds and abrasives that result in less residual dust. You've probably heard of kicks or poor contacts occurring in snooker. The overwhelming factor that is commented as to the reasoning for these is down to the chalk. This can be from residual chalk that's left from striking upon the cue ball, or the build-up of chalk on the table from continuous play. Either way, when the snooker ball rolls over these chalked surfaces, they can create the forces that upon impact causes the cue ball or object ball to bounce in the air slightly, while deflecting the balls off their intended course. This is where manufacturers like Taum have made revolutions in the chalk game. As opposed to a player constantly having to get balls cleaned by the referee, Taum created a chalk with properties that reduce chalk transferring from the tip to the cue ball. This in theory, and later in practice, proved to be effective in that professionals that have taken up this newer, expensive piece of equipment have noted the significant reduction in kicks and chalk residue. So why don't all players use this? Well, Taum chalk doesn't come without its risks, the primary one being that there is an increased chance of miscues. Dominic Dell stated that in comparison to triangle chalk, Taum is a lot more cakey and powdery, which can result in a lesser grip and therefore more miscues, which have been witnessed on occasion in competition. However, Taum have developed a softer version of their chalk to help with these circumstances. The progress in the chalk market is determined by a manufacturer's ability to create a compound which has the perfect balance between softness and abrasiveness. This is why chalk was the perfect choice, and there had been very few changes in the chalks that players would use for years to come. But what do you think? What is your chalk of choice?